Hello and welcome to another WeAreDevelopers Live. It's Wednesday again, and we're going to be chatting about lots of cool stuff today. I just saw the popping up of the people in the intro, and I can't remember all of them anymore.
I know.
We have to make a list of like who was here already and what we talked about. It's really bizarre.
Yeah. No, I mean, we said, didn't we, at the end of 2025, the amount of guests that we'd had, it mounts up quickly. And yeah, we're on close to 100, I would say, just on the live show.
Yeah.
I mean, 52 minimum. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, Cappuccino with AR is the other thing that we have, and they gave me a coffee mug and said like I have to make sure that I keep holding it up and talking about coffee with Cappuccino with HR as well. And then I realized, like, if you make swag like that, like if you make like marketing materials, nobody drinks coffee like this.
No, this is true, but then you could be like me, Chris. You have to
print it on the side. Print it on the side. Don't print it on the front. This makes no sense. Nobody drinks coffee like this.
But see, being left-handed is a spanner in the works, because I think when my wife bought me this, hello, handsome, slightly embarrassing. I think when she bought me that, she was thinking I was right-handed so people would see it, but they're not. I'm a lefty, so nobody ever sees it. See, so it's just to myself. So
Well, that's the idea. Maybe it's just giving you an idea again. Like, could have been a mirror then, right? That would have been easier, but then
not
there's fingerprints all over it. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's just. But isn't it bizarre? Every coffee mug, I have about 500 coffee mugs here from different conferences and companies and stuff, and they're always printing on that side, and you're like, this makes no sense. This is like having. Yeah, it's odd.
We need
but yeah,
it's done. We need to get one for this show, Chris, and show them how it's done.
Proper unit testing, proper testing on the product before we actually go live. That's the most important part there. Now, today we got somebody in who I came across on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. I love when people give like little snackable advice to do things to the right way and just show a little demo. And it always looks very simple when somebody does like a two-liner in like JavaScript or a one-liner in CSS, and everybody's like, oh, well, no, everybody knows that, but most people don't know it, and it costs a lot of time and money and effort to actually make these things look right. And he's one of those rising stars that just comes up on my feeds, and I'm like, this is pretty cool, so let's get that person in. So we got Theodore Lefebvre here, and he's coming from France, as that name obviously says with the accent and everything. And you're a front-end developer. So how are you doing, Theodore?
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me here, guys. I'm great. What about you?
We're great too. I mean, Dan is actually handsome, as far as I heard from a coffee mug, but I don't know quite sure what that means. But yeah, it's quite nice support. I mean, that unicorn that I have behind me is something that my partner threw out from her house. So she basically said like, I don't need it anymore, and I'm like, I need this for the show now. So that's how we're going to have like these things here. So there's a lot of recycling going on. So that's the interesting bit. Now, Theodore, you've written a book, as far as I understood it as well, about like that you don't need JavaScript, right?
Yes.
What kind of heresy is that?
It's from a vision I see. It's like everyone reached for JavaScript because it became an habit. Because like 5 years ago, CSS and HTML weren't strong enough to handle a lot of cases. And like in the 3-4 years ago, it became a lot stronger. There are a lot more of HTML tags, a lot more of CSS properties that came out that are strongly supported by browsers today, and can replace a lot of JavaScript for little interactions, for a small component, for layouts, for different things. And so I tried to gather a lot of these components inside one book to show people how to do something, how to have pages load faster without a lot of JavaScript.
Excellent. I think that dependency on JavaScript was the biggest issue, that people just like, instead of just understanding that the HTML, because a right semantic HTML already gives you 90% of the functionality, people use JavaScript to enhance a div to do the thing. And then actually not realizing that they have to do all the things that that semantic HTML does. When CSS was always the issue with like browsers not supporting it, and browsers we shouldn't, Safari, not actually supporting it properly. that was always the issue that people had. I mean, 2003, 2004, I wrote an online course called Unobtrusive JavaScript, which means use JavaScript that it's not in your way, only when it's necessary, but not actually as a dependency. Because the thing about JavaScript is it can always fail, and there's no functionality whatsoever. CSS cannot fail. CSS doesn't get applied when it's not supported, and that's about that. So that to me is the difference. But I think and we're going to come back to that later when we go into details about what you want to show in this show today. I think the biggest problem is that people didn't want to give up that control. JavaScript gives you full control over what you do. With CSS, you have to hope that the browser does it right. Do you think that might be a thing why people jump to JavaScript for every solution?
Yeah, for sure. But there are a thing we call progressive enhancement. It's like you can use a property that is not widely supported yet, but if it's not like an important feature, something like user needs to know or needs to see, like I don't know, a small animation or something like that. It's okay if like 10% of your users don't see it. You can. It's okay. So I think it's a philosophy to have check which feature is really important, which feature is not that important. Where if it's I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the main point, the main thing to remember. It's like you have to choose in regarding the goal of your feature.
I think the annoyance about that one is I always kept telling people that progressive enhancement makes total sense. You do the main thing that does the functionality, and then you make it better depending on the environment of your end user. If they're on a modern browser, they can do that. If they're on a mobile phone, they do that. If they do a mobile thing, they do that. And my demo was always Google, because Google was always a search box. If everything breaks down, you turn off JavaScript, you turn off CSS, you're just a text browser, you will get a search box. And that was the main purpose of Google. And then it became better depending on what your environment is. Nowadays, you don't even get a search box anymore. Like a lot of these large companies have completely given up that without JavaScript, you cannot use their things any longer. And it feels weird that nobody complains about this. It feels really bad that this sturdiness of the old web, that basically it will always give you something that works rather than just like it gives you a perfect solution. And I think when apps came around and the web had to compete with mobile phone apps, then people just gave up on that whole idea of progressively creating something. They just test the end result, and that's about it. So, and it's great that people like you are around to basically remind people that's not needed. So hopefully people listen to you.
And one thing that's important to realize that all semantic HTML comes with a lot of accessibility inside it. So you don't have to recreate every accessibility case in JavaScript. It can, I don't know, for like the dialog component, there are a lot of accessibility issues to handle, like the backdrop, the target, the auto target inside the dialog, the fact that the background website, the body website must not be interactable, and stuff like that. There are a lot of cases to remember to code in JavaScript if you don't use semantic HTML.
Yeah, and there's so much free stuff in using the right tool for the right job. But yeah, people, I mean, rather than that, they're like, oh, React component this and 10,000 npm modules, and hopefully everything will be fine. Well, let's take a look at some of the resources that I collected for today to chat about. The first one is interesting because I'm interviewing for Coffee with Developers the maker of curl, Daniel Stenberg, on Monday. So if you have any questions for him, please send them to us and please tell us about them. I asked people on social media about that. And he's actually having a problem right now that curl, and if you don't know curl, basically you wouldn't have internet access in your operating system without curl. It's a library that is basically a Unix library or Linux library that is used in every platform out there for internet access and for networking access. And it's maintained by one person in Sweden and a few people around them. And he's been basically drowning in AI content and pull requests that basically he can't answer and they gave up on the bug bounty program because too many people tried to game it with AI, just generated stuff rather than him going through it. And it will be interesting to see what he has to say about that. But it's really frustrating to see that people just basically try to actually game the system by making an AI bot send in requests instead of them. What is your thought on that? Like, is it as if you generate something with vibe coding, and you make a pull request for open source project to actually do it in there? What should be the steps to make to send it in beforehand? Because right now people just create 10,000 lines of code and do a pull request and not understand that the maintainer has no time to look through them for you.
Maybe in few years it will be okay to do it like that. I don't know how the AI will evolve, but I don't work exactly like that since I'm a freelancer. I work for myself for a few years now, but I think it should try to split more the pull request, because if you have to review 10,000 lines in one pull request, it's really impossible. So try to split more the pull request, and I don't know, try to add more context in the AI to try to avoid security issues and everything. But I don't really know how to do that better.
Well, it will be interesting to talk to Daniel again on Monday and see what he has to say. Dan, you were thinking?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that, because I think there's something really interesting actually when I looked at the comments on that article, where it kind of tapped into sort of the way maybe we need to look at all of this, you know, in terms of the impact of kind of slop and how it can be used now for things like this to game the system. It's the top comment where it says, "I'm not sure how successful it would be, but could you use the reputation system in the opposite way?" And this is referring to the fact that the maintainer says that they will punish people who are kind of abusing it and who are, you know, creating vulnerabilities that they then fix. And so this person is saying, you know, should we actually do it so that when somebody has submitted X amount of verified issues, so when someone does something good, we highlight it. And it made me think that one of them assumes that everything is slop, and you highlight the PRs or the, you know, code submissions that are good. And the way that we have been working is kind of assuming that everything is good, and you are reviewing the pull request to see if it's good enough to bring in, but you're working on the assumption that it probably is legitimate. And it just says something about this AI slop discussion, that, you know, now we're at the place where we perhaps need to assume, you know, everything that's generated is low quality slop, and then we, you know, pick out the ones that aren't.
Well, it's like a zero trust approach to pull requests that we had in Microsoft as well. Like, basically, you just assume things to be vulnerable and send it through the list to test things for. But yeah, I mean, this is about the bug bounty program as well. And a lot of people I know are actually using bug bounties as secondary income. Basically, they're finding vulnerabilities in products, and it's fun to do. It's fun to poke at a product and find a security issue, and then get paid for finding the bug. And I mean, some of them get $1 million for things like OpenAI and these kind of things. But it's become a market, and that's where it becomes, I guess, overwhelming for people, that there's too much stuff coming in. This was interesting as well, like the scaling long-running on autonomous coding at Cursor. Somebody has actually run like lots and lots of different agents at the same time to write a browser, and it actually created 1 million lines of code across 1,000 files, and the browser is actually available on GitHub and actually started to do the thing, and you can try it out. And it's quite impressive that we can come up from scratch with these things with a machine. I'm writing a browser is one of the worst things ever. I mean, I worked on 2 of them. It's not fun. It's actually one of the most complex bits, one of the most attacked bits on this planet, even more than content management systems. So having a browser that's like completely vibe coded by agents that tell each other things to do is quite impressive. But I was really wondering if it's just for the headline to do it. And then again, like, why do we need another browser engine? There's the only one that I know that is new that is out there is basically Strawberry is a platform for like AI agents, and then there's the what's it called, the Ladybug browser. That's the only engine that's getting written from scratch at the moment. Other than that, we need actually more browser independence and these kind of things. We had last week we had Kilian Valkov here. No, I had him in a coffee with developers on Friday. It's coming out this Friday in the newsletter, and he's talking about that problem that we have like only one engine to test against now. Basically, if you want to get 99% of the market. So Theodore, what about you? Like, are you a Firefox user as well? Are you a Safari user? Are you a Chrome user? Do you try all of them out? Like, what is your weapon of choice when you surf the web?
I use Chrome to surf the web, but I try to use Safari, Firefox for all the testing when I create a website to check that everything works correctly in every environment. I try to on my mobile, but yeah, for all the browsing, I use Chrome, even though it's a bit heavy in my GPU. But yeah.
Cool. Now, dates are the biggest problem in coding. Like, developers don't know how to date. No, wait, that's another thing. But the date object basically in JavaScript has been taken from Java, hasn't changed in like older than I am, I guess. And there's so many things that can go wrong in date calculation. And this article is a really interesting thing to show you all the bits and bobs that are going wrong. And now we got temporal. And temporal is basically the new API that's now shipped in all the browsers out there and also in Node. And it allows you to actually use dates in a much cleverer and much more reliable fashion. There's also a playground that you can play with if you want to try out the new API to try it and to see what's going on. So just as a reminder, if you're doing something with date or date and time in programming, first of all, don't, because it's a horrible, painful thing to do. But second of all, if you have to do the temporal API, is probably a better thing. There's also a new API that uses no code, but actually is an LLM that runs the command line that actually turns sentences into dates. I think that's a bit too much to do, but the temporal API is something that I always looked forward to seeing. Have you had any issue with like dates and things in coding, Dan? Like, did it bite you in the bum at one time?
Oh yeah. It's I mean, it's a massive headache, isn't it? Everyone knows that they are, and they're just unpredictable. I've definitely had it when I was working on something with time zones, and it was just the unpredictability of formats going in and out of databases and trying to make sure everything's consistent, and it is just a rabbit hole. And I've used temporal. I've played around with it, when it was before it was baseline, actually, just because it was something we'd written an article on, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's plain English. Finally, it feels like predictable. You know what you're going to get. We know that. I mean, this article actually points out some quirks about the date object that are so. I mean, we knew it had these quirks, but there's some that, I mean, there's one actually that I was going to ask if either of you knew the details of it, because I think there's a typo in the article, and I thought, okay, it's the where is it now? There it is. It's towards the top of the article, the first article on it's called "Date is Out, Temporal is In." It's the other article, I think, Chris, and it's got the date constructor with there it is, just below the line, the date constructor. These two code blocks, console log new date 49, and it says a numeric string, the next block there, Chris, sorry, there it is. A numeric string between 32 and 49 is assumed to be in the 2000s. So it, the year is 2000. A numeric string between 33 and 99 is assumed to be in the 1900s. But 32 and 49 and 33 and 99. So how does it know? Surely that's a typo, because they would overlap.
I would say so. I think that might be no. What? So it's the 32 might be that it is a bug, actually. Maybe that's something that if something is like 33, Well, that would only be like no, that can't be. Yeah, that must be a typo. I mean, I want to get him. I want to get Duilto anyways in for this show, so we can actually show him how horrible he is in writing things that he mistypes. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, Theodore, you just basically JavaScript's not my thing. But have you ever had any date problems?
Yeah,
with
of
JavaScript
course.
date, not in real life.
Like Dan, yes, I used to use a lot of JavaScript when I had my previous job, and I had once I had to create a double calendar, like Airbnb, with a start date and an end date, and it was really horrible to create, to handle every date, to know which one will go after the other one, and everything with React and states, and everything re-rendering all the time. It was painful. So yeah, I'm really happy to have a temporal keyword now, a temporal property in JavaScript. I think it will be a lot more easier to generate this kind of stuff. And I had a question. I tried to add temporal in Can I Use to see the usage, and I don't see it baseline yet. Is it baseline?
I think it was announced. I think it was at the end of the article. They did link to it, but I didn't verify. It's completely. There it is. It's landed in the latest versions of Chrome and Firefox. So not known. I mean, it's at least not showing on. Can I use as sort of baseline? Yeah, got Firefox and Chrome.
Yeah, so it's still here in Firefox. Interesting, but then again, it's gonna come. I mean, Chrome 144 to 156, and I get Edge. That's weird. That doesn't list that one yet, but I can go to the GitHub repo and see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, Opera, who cares? IE dead. Yeah, Samsung Internet. Oh my God.
Maybe there are some polyfills existing to adapt temporals.
Yeah, I'm always worried about polyfills though, because the idea of a polyfill, when Remy Sharp came up with the thing, and it's a very British term, which basically is just the thing that you fill something so the water doesn't seep through, and when it's until you can fix it. Yeah. And there's so many polyfills that basically become landfill of the web because we never take them out again. I mean, a good polyfill writes itself and recognizes if the original temporal APIs are there, then it doesn't apply any of the code, but that doesn't mean the source code isn't loaded. That still means we add to a lot of stuff that actually doesn't need fixing anymore. So hopefully that'll work out as well. Now, this is a very depressing thing as well. Jeremy Keith found out that there is like the data list element, which I think is woefully underused because it's wonderful because it allows you to take any input element and turn it into a searchable box with like preset values. But it seems like in iOS 26, it's now completely broken because that's what it looks like. So that's basically, it was okay in iOS 25, but then it's a regression now that's actually broken in the latest Safari again. So that is really frustrating to me, and probably to you as well, Theodore. If something that just should work because it's been a standard since 2005 or something, gets a regression and doesn't work the way it's supposed to anymore. And this is unusable now, and that's a really bad thing about it.
Yeah, that's annoying. That's why I don't use it for now. But there are some alternatives, like the new selects that are really customizable, like you want. So I prefer going for a select like I can customize like I want than using a data list like this. It's not exactly the same purpose, but if you can switch, it's better to use the select. Yeah.
Then again, I mean, it always annoys me because every single time when I talk about some cool JavaScript, some cool CSS or HTML stuff, and people are like, it doesn't work on iOS, so we can't use it. That's always like the block, isn't it? Because
Safari
that's where-
is the new Internet Explorer.
No, I think the biggest problem is also that like iOS users spend money and Android users don't. And I think that's where if you want to make money with a mobile app, you go on iOS. It's like there's more people on Android, but they want everything cheaper. That's the problem with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the frustration is that it's the last engine that we cannot pester in a public repo. We can go to the WebKit repo and fix it there, and that means maybe Apple does it in a year or so. We're not quite sure. So that's the last bit that we have where we're not where browser makers are not as responsive as they should be. So you're a main user on iOS, right, Stan? Your main phone is iOS. Did you ever come across this? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that I have come across it when I've mentioned it before, that anytime I have to choose from a list of countries, and if you're from the UK, you've got Great Britain, United Kingdom, sometimes England, you've got all Britain, you've got UK, it's listed as any number of different things. And so you're constantly scrolling up and down. And I've definitely found some very strange things in the wild where, there's something that I assume it's a select, but it's probably one that they've hacked with divs, as you were talking about before, Chris, because it'll pop up and it'll show you maybe 7 or 8 from the list, and it's a scrollable list. And that's almost like only letting you look sort of through a window from a distance. You don't see many in the list, and when you're already trying to find your country, it's quite difficult. So yeah, these things definitely do matter. And I do find that Safari, for me as a user, feels quite ugly, and that sounds bad because I know that a lot of it is the built-in native elements and their all of their features that I'm seeing. But I understand why, from a developer point of view, there's a lot of things that are just quite irritating, as you said, the Internet Explorer of the modern day, because no matter what you do, and it's always a trade-off. It feels like you get a use, for accessibility and user experience, the features that are in the native elements, but then you get this ugly element like this one here that puts you off of using it in the first place. So that's always, I think, the trade-off that developers are making.
I had to reset my my Apple password the other day, and if you ever had to do that, that's like an interface element straight out of 1995. It's like 2 gray boxes that basically says like first password and second password, and the rest of Mac OS is so clean and wonderful, and this is like out of a sudden there's a proper Windows 95 thing in the middle of your Mac OS experience. So that's very interesting to see. But then again, Tahoe, and I haven't updated yet, everybody's complaining about little icons in the drop downs at the moment. So it seems like somebody even pointed out that they're violating the own Apple guidelines from 1996, how to actually build an operating system. I haven't seen it yet, but everybody's just going bonkers about this one right now. Have you updated to Tahoe yet, Dan or Theodore, or do you see those icons? Or
Not yet, but I see what you are referencing to. I saw some memes or stuff on internet that are showing the wrong stuff on the new OS. Yeah.
do some weird stuff. I love this one. This is basically a game that actually says like you are a bot that actually has to learn the web, and it's actually just wonderful criticism about like how terrible the web is now.
It's so intense. It's really intense. I mean, we're not hearing it with the sound, I know here, but it's brilliant. It's a great idea, and I think that is the point, that it's intense, but it's a lot.
Nice.
Retweet.
I mean, it does show though, doesn't it? We've talked before about things like dark patterns, and that we do get so trained into how we use these different devices. Even like the Tinder left swipe is in there, and you have to do it within 5 seconds or you lose. It's brilliant.
And I mean, there's a good story to that. It's basically like everybody's writing agents now and using automation in Chromium to actually click on things and fill out forms for you and these kind of things. And it just shows how terrible we are at building interfaces that have like clicks everywhere on the screen. And like the idea of this one is just showing people just how much we messed up the internet, instead of just having standard interface elements that basically work the same way. That you have to learn the interface of every app out there rather than just knowing that's a select box. That's how select boxes work. as you said, like when I type things in, I type in the numbers and I expect it to jump to the number where I go. But if I have to put in my birth date, it just gets really depressing in my case because it's born in 75, and you scroll for like 5 hours to get down to the 1975 rather than just typing 4 characters in. United Kingdom was also a great thing because when I lived in the UK, I had to fill out things. It's like oftentimes I did United Emirates because I just basically clicked too fast and then I got banned. And I don't know, like it was interesting to see. So it's a really interesting thing to how inefficient it is to teach a bot to use the web like a human rather than just like making it simpler interfaces. This is also really cute. This is basically a map where you can paint on the map. So if you scroll out, you basically don't see them, but if you scroll in, and of course in Berlin we got the Techno Viking, and people do all kind of stuff. Like it's just hilarious how much like digital what do you say like graffiti or like messing things up, and it's just really, really funny. Oh my God, one of the politicians in Germany. And it's like there's all kind of fights between football clubs there and like political statements and stuff. So it's pretty cool to just paint on a thing and get a pixel that you can click on and do it yourself. Not like the million pixel thing that was sponsored back then. This is just basically vandalism on a map. And I like that kind of stuff, that people just build something like that.
Yeah,
very
that's
cool.
Nice. Is there drawings everywhere in the whole world or only on big cities?
So that's the other fun bit to compare different countries to each other. This is also another one that I got excited about. It's like somebody collected all the 3D environments over the years that people build, where they said like 3D is the future, and with Metaverse shutting down all of their departments right now, it shows like how many of those completely failed because it always feels like the right thing to do, but it kind of like, oh God, magic eye. I could never use those things. Did they work for you where you could see something if you look? I had to look through it or screw up your eyes and then you would see something 3D in it. But it's actually pretty fun to see like every time we said like 3D is the future, and it died immediately again. And I've got one of those as well. I saw it in a museum once before, so that was pretty fun.
Strange,
but
though.
Metaverse.
Why is it stayed novelty? Why is it? Because it is something that's just it's got the 80s nostalgia to it. It's obviously got the more historic attempts like are in that article, but it is just going to always remain a bit novelty, it feels. Partly I do think, partly with like VR headsets as well, that some of the early ones when people were feeling sick when they were using them, and I thought, well, that's something they have to overcome, because I don't see how you're going to have widespread adoption if a percentage of people get sick. And I know that they have improved that, but I think it's still pretty prevalent. And so I don't, I know that that's maybe like a just like one example, but I'm not quite sure with all of this. I'd love VR more so than 3D. I'd love VR to become this sort of commonplace thing that we're all using in our house, but I just don't know. I'm not convinced by it still, even after all these years.
Same as you, Dan. I don't own a VR headset, but the few times I tried them, it was not that great. The feeling was not. It was a bit off. I don't know. But and now there is Google who does glasses, augmented reality, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't try it, but maybe it can be a good in between. I don't know.
It's kind of a privacy nightmare though as well, isn't it? Because you don't know when people film you. There's a little red dot, but that's about it. And like it feels very bizarre. I think the biggest problem was the haptics were missing. The 3D world is something that we live in. So if you simulate a 3D world and you cannot touch the 3D thing, then our brain is like, oh my God, I'm getting seasick. This is really bad. I don't know how to do that. And of course, frames per second is a big issue. Like, if you're under 60 frames per second in any 3D environment, people get physically sick. And there's like people, all kind of like disabilities that have issues with that. But everybody like that. I remember when WebGL came out and I said, like, this is the first time I can physically make people puke with JavaScript. And I don't even have to do an extra effort in that because it's just going to be the environment that does it for me. So, it's an interesting one. We're actually kind of we chatted a lot, so I'm switching. I'm skipping the tips and tricks. Maybe we can come back to them later. There's a few interesting things in there. You can check the links later on as well. I think what the interesting bit here is that the 5 awesome scroll fade effects with vanilla JavaScript was my favorite because it basically just said don't. It's like it just shows how bad it is. But we have a new thing that we put together, and I want to switch into that one. So Theodore, if you don't know that yet, we're going to play a game called Fake or News, and that one actually means we're going to show you a headline, and you're going to tell us if it's a real headline or if it's a fake one. If it's something that I came up with or something that was part of the research that we've done where we found a headline or a news page. So without further ado, let's get into the playing Fake or News.
Let's go.
All right, so let's get started. Musk seeks up to 134 billion damages from OpenAI and Microsoft.
Let's say yes, news. Yeah.
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 It's crazy enough to be true.
It is news. 134 billion. You could buy Greenland with that. Oh wait, let's not do that.
Impressive. Yeah.
Audit tools updated to flag vibe code after unusual bug patterns emerge.
I'd say fake.
I think it's true. I think it's news. I could see a pattern. Yeah.
Really?
It's fake. Musk says Tesla is moving full self-driving to a monthly subscription.
No, impossible.
No. Oh.
I don't believe it.
It is news. He said it.
Oh.
Oh,
It
wow.
would be fun. Like, it's like you drive along with your car, and then like, the month is over, and it starts hitting the brakes in the middle of the road, or I don't know. Physical attacks on crypto holders are wrench assaults rising.
That has to be fake.
Yes, I want to believe it.
Dan, you say it's news or fake?
It has to be fake. It has to be.
It's news.
Oh, wow. The world is so strange.
The right tool for the right job. European regulators open inquiry to contextual social media personalization engines.
Yeah, I think so. I'm quite worried about that. It sounds real.
It says the same, yeah.
It's fake. Although you should see it's not by it's by me, and I put the Z in there, which is wrong. It should be an S, but like no, absolutely, yeah. Lucid Dream startup says people can work in their sleep.
That's got to be real.
Yeah, news.
Yeah.
Yep, it is a thing that you put on your head while you sleep, and you're supposed to actually do testing and like interface, and it's just the most inhuman thing I've seen in a while. It's just like, oh, you better stop, you better not stop working ever.
Crazy.
Ukraine's army targeted a new charity-themed malware campaign.
That's so random that I'm going to say it's true because it's bonkers.
I'd say false, but
it is true, and it basically shows that malware creators are terrible, terrible people. I mean, there's no cool piracy in malware. I'm sorry, that's just like amazing what people do. Cloud providers test tiered latency guarantees for enterprise customers.
I'm gonna say it's fake. I'm almost thinking it sounds real, but because of that, I think it's fake.
I want it to be fake, so I will say fake too.
Yeah.
It is fake.
Okay.
US government sysadmin stole 200 phones caught by House ID desk.
Yes, let's say it's news.
Yeah, it sounds real.
And it is news, yeah. And that was fake or news for this time. You can play along with that one as well. We're going to put that on social media as well, and it's actually so much fun to collect these things. And yeah, there's a bug in my app here because the solve shouldn't show up right now. But yeah, that was fake or news. So with that, let's go back to our main program, and let's hand over to you. So Theodore, you have some demos for us that you wanted to show us. I collected a few CSS things there, but you put the effort in. So let's hand over to you and woo us with some CSS stuff that we might not have known about.
All right, let's go. Do you see my screen now?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Yep.
So I have two few examples that I really want to show you, and maybe a few one bonus at the end if we have time. So the first one is accordion component. It's pretty basic in the use. It's like a title that is clickable. When you click on it, there is an associated content that collapse or open. And that's it. In JavaScript, it will take maybe just one class removing and opening. But there are a lot of accessibility that is already inside the detail summary tags in HTML. So we can navigate with tabs, open with enter. And if we search for text that is not visible, like lorem ipsum, it will open the drop-down because it knows the content there is inside. So it's open by researching the word. And to do that, it's really simple. In HTML, you have to declare a details tag. Inside, you take the summary. So the summary will be the title, the clickable part of your accordion. And then below, you can add whatever you want. The content that will be collapse or open. So this is a basic use of it. By default, it looks like this. So without style, you have an arrow, the title, the text, and everything. It works. So if you remove JavaScript from your browser, it works. And there is two things we can add to the detailed summary to make it a bit more, I don't know how to say it, flexible. Yeah. The first one is the open property. So open will tell you that this this accordion will be opened on the start of the page. So if I reload the page, the first one is open by default. So that's cool if you need this. And the second one I like is that you can link multiple accordion together. It's like inputs. You just have to put names on each details. So here I have a name test for the first one and the second one, the two. And when they are linked, only one of them can be open at a time. So when I try to open one, the other one closes. By default, you can open the two together. So that's pretty
cool. It's like a radio group, basically, or like a checkbox group that gets the same name. That's lovely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I love that you only need to get that open element. So if you do anything interactive in JavaScript, you can just remove and add the open attribute. So you don't need to do any re-rendering or anything like that. That's a pretty cool thing as well. That searching for a text was only Chromium, but until last month, I think now all the browsers offer it as well. Yeah. So that automatic opening. One thing that I encountered when I used it that is really depressing or bad actually is that you cannot put an interactive element inside the summary. So you cannot put a link around that text or a headline around that because that messes with the accessibility tree. So that's the only thing we still need to fix, but it's really cool that you can do that. And I didn't know about the name one yet because we talked about that when it came out, and that's really, really cool. Thank you. This is really awesome.
And yes, so it has some properties in HTML, but you can have one that is also nice to have in CSS. So the details tag has an open property that is available to style when the dropdown is open. So that's how you do the transition, the height transition, for example. By default, it's instantaneous. Here, I added a small transition in the height. So yeah, so you have this, and you have also the details content property that allows you to style the content of the accordion. So here for the transition, for the height transition, I use this. And then, yeah, when it's open, the details content height is auto, and when it's closed, the details content is 0, and then you animate everything. So yeah, and one last thing, by default, the arrow, it looks like this. It's a bit ugly, it's hard to style, so you can hide it with a WebKit details marker and use, I don't know, an after tag or a SVG somewhere to style the arrow here. So
the WebKit prefix, is that going away? Is that being standardized right now? Because that's one thing that I find annoying about lots of CSS solutions right now. There's always a WebKit thing in there. Yeah. And I don't want to see browser prefixes anymore. That feels weird.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a world without prefixes. I agree. So this was the accordion, and let's check the dialog component. So dialog, it's part of an element that shows over your content. So here, the dialog is open. I can't access the content that is behind it. Even with my tabs, I can't reach the content behind. And that's it. I forgot to uncomment this. So in JavaScript, like the details content, it's not that hard to open a div like this. The hard part is all the accessibility that comes around it. So the backdrop, the fact that the content behind is inaccessible, the fact that we can't scroll in the page when it's open. There are a lot of small different accessibility issues that are handled for us with the dialog tag. It's pretty easy. In the HTML, we have a button that opens the dialog. Okay. I use JavaScript for that, but it's not a big deal. It's the only JavaScript you will need to open a dialog. So yeah, you add an event listener on the button that shows the modal, and it will open. Then you have the dialog, your dialog tag with all your content. And here, to close the dialog, you have two possibilities in general. The first one is to use JavaScript and do the same, but with close modal. The second one, you can invoke, you can submit a form with the method dialog. This will allow you to close the modal without any JavaScript. So that's pretty cool. But there is more. Recently, it has like 17% browser support yet, but recently there is a new invoker that has released called command and command for. So here I created another button. This one won't need JavaScript. It has only the command, so it will be linked to the modal, to the dialog. Command for my dialog ID my dialog. So the button is linked to my dialog, and the command will be show modal. And now, if I click on it, the dialog is opened without JavaScript, just because the two are linked together. So it's pretty cool. And you can do the same for the closing button. If you use this, we remove that. And here, like before, the command for to link the button to the dialog, and the command here is close. Now, when I click the close button, it will dismiss the dialog. No JavaScript, only HTML and CSS. That's pretty awesome for me. And then in CSS, dialogues like the summary, detailed summary we saw before, come with a few CSS properties. The first one is a backdrop. If you don't define a backdrop, it will add a color by default. So you can change the color of the backdrop, add a blur effect if you want, add everything you want in it. Then, like the detailed summary, you have the open to know in which state your dialog is, if it's open or if it's closed. And then yeah, you can create your transition to make it so your dialogue appear or disappear nicely. Here I did fade in, fade out with scrolls with a scroll. And last thing that is not handled by default by the dialog is removing of the scrolling bar. So so you can scroll when the dialog is open. So you just need to do this when the dialog is open. When body has dialog open, then you do an overflow hidden on your body, and it works.
I ask a question about that very quickly, Theodore. When you do the overflow hidden, if you I suppose you can't really very easily, but if you are scrolled down the page and then you click the modal, does it snap back to the top because of the overflow hidden, or does it it keeps its position? Great.
Yeah, keeps the position.
That's great.
Yeah. And that's
another great example wherein you do your own scroll bars, because before we had stylable scroll bars, people did their own scroll bars in JavaScript. They never did that. They always went back to the beginning. Like they never stored the thing. Like the great thing about browsers is when you do things in them, they remember what you did and bring you back to where you came from. And when you do your own solutions, then probably that's not a good idea. So the invoker pattern stuff, there's also a great article by Shark Neethling about this that I thought that I can tell people to read. It's interesting. What's the support on that one? Is that now
17% command 4. Yeah, 72%, but baseline. So
everything that's important, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I have my little bonus if you have time.
Sure.
I discovered it yesterday, so I implemented it right away on my blog. It's the fact to link your table of content with your sections of your article with 2 CSS lines. I find it mind-blowing because before you had to use an intersection observer, know the distance between the different section, link the table of content with the article, and it was sometimes pain in the ass. If you had a small section, it could make some conflicts on your table of content. Here, 2 lines of CSS makes the link impeccable. And to show you how it's done, so this is my table of content here. I have all my links in a UL.
We're not seeing the source code right now. We're still seeing the page.
Okay. Maybe I can show you with the console, so I will share my other screen.
Look at that infinity. Isn't it just pointing to a target in the page, like a fragment identifier? And okay.
That's it. But I didn't know it existed, and it was really mind-blowing for me. Like yesterday, I discovered it, and wow.
Well, I mean, it's always been the case when you did the menu as position fixed, and you just send it to a target in the page that would do it like that way. But and then you had like to scroll. You can make the scrolls smooth and the scroll just not smooth.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Like scrolling smooth is beautiful, but it's really, really super annoying when somebody like zoomed in 400% because they're actually visually disabled. Then basically, it's always a good idea to do check the add motion query to put the smooth scrolling in there or not. So that's one thing because it can make people feel woozy as well if it scrolls slowly to the place rather than that. But this is so you got your list here. Can you bump up the volume, bump up the font face a bit?
Yes. Okay. So this is my table of content. I have a UL with all my links in it. So each of my links has an href that links to a title of my page, to an ID each of my titles have a specific ID, and each of my links link to the title. And in the code, I just have to add a scroll target group to my UL, the container of all my links, and this will tell to the browser that this will be all of my links, all of my titles will be linked to the UL. And then with that, you have a new property, target current, that will say when you are on this specific target, you will style it. So when you check here, I'm in the layering in this chapter, this title, and the table of content is really pointing to the place I'm at. If I scroll up a bit, I'm in the build a tiny recipe now. If I scroll, pick a single light source, and it's really it's really functional, and it's
the two-way wasn't before that you had to do by hand. So the two-way with the target current highlights the current in the list. That's freaking cool. That's really lovely. Yeah.
And regarding the support, is not awesome yet. If we check, it's 65% without support on Safari and Firefox. But like I said, progressive enhancement on my blog, it's not big deal if a user don't see the table of content updates. It's better if they have it, but it's not a big deal. So I use it without a fallback, and I say, if you see it, great. If you don't see it, it's okay.
It's still like that. That's going to be a good replacement for lots and lots of JavaScript out there. I mean, like WordPress has it, and like Medium has that as a really huge JavaScript solution to actually do that kind of highlighting, checking the scroll position, and saying like if the heading is within the same scroll as there, then highlight this. And it's always been very shaky, and especially with like a virtual keyboard open on the browser, then there might be all kind of wrong jumping going on. So by relying on JavaScript, on CSS to do it. And that's, I think, my main story that you probably give as well all the time is like, CSS is actually allowing you to let the browser do its job. And browser makers and CSS standards creators have thought about usability functionality and usability ideas that you probably have never thought of. So let them do their job. Let the browsers do the right thing rather than you trying to find it. And how did you? I mean, the joy of finding something like that you just said like 2 days ago, I found that this is working. This is pretty cool to see that kind of stuff happening. Now, one thing that I'm worried about to a degree is that CSS, to me, we had always like CSS only solutions, where people then went into the other extreme and said like, okay, I have to make it work in CSS only, and I hate JavaScript. So people did like nested input elements and like all kind of stuff, and like hidden checkboxes to give keyboard interactivity. And they came with a lot of accessibility problems as well. Like a lot of times the accessibility, saying like JavaScript is inaccessible is as wrong as saying like CSS only solutions will always be accessible, because you can do horrible things in CSS as well. But I find it interesting that we're getting into a world where these kind of solutions that you just showed just work. Like, just use them. Don't think about them. Just use them because it does it. But then I look at the syntax of CSS with like layers and like transitions, and now having 5 different start transition, end transition, page things. It becomes really complex, doesn't it? It feels like CSS was like much more easier on the designy end of things, because you basically just design things with it. But now it becomes a full programming language, and that is actually, a lot of people look at it now and they're like, I'm out. Do you think we're overcomplicating CSS by giving us too much access to primitives?
It's a tough question. It's hard to tell, but but yeah, I think maybe for now, we use a lot of preprocessor like SAS, LESS, or stuff like that to try to have better, I don't know how to say it, grasp on CSS, have more options to use CSS. So I feel it's good to have better option to inside native CSS, so we can remove preprocessor and everything. I guess a lot of new CSS won't be used or really little, but it's not a bad thing, I think, to have a lot of options to do the same thing around. It's tough to respond to that, but yeah.
I think as an educator, it's the time. It's a good time to point out to like you do. Like, here's the things that are easy to do, and here's what comes out of it. Like that, you have an add scope and add layer now in every CSS that gives you like access to the rendering engine of the browser. Is, as you said, good for fewer people out there that really need that. But I think it's a good time to be an educator in CSS and telling people like, here's the things that are making your life easier, and here's the things, if you want to be a hardcore CSS developer, then you can probably do it, then you can probably use those as well. But there's always this race of like, is it available yet, is it not available yet? But I think as you said, the re-emergence of the progressive enhancement is a thing that I'm super excited about as well. But there's always been people out there that said like, progressive enhancement is not necessary because you never ever do. I mean, when the CSS and JS came out, and people basically said like, okay, you never change only the CSS, you change everything anyway. So why do we make that separation between CSS, HTML, and JavaScript any longer? I still think it makes sense in terms of maintainability, because if I now need to change a color, I know I go to the CSS rather than like I have to find the one module in the 6,000 JS files that actually has that color hard coded in it. But I think it's just a matter of like experience. The more you do it, the more you actually start to embracing CSS. Is that something that you found as well, that junior developers are harder to get excited?
Yeah, maybe. And I guess a lot of junior try to go for tools rather than learning native CSS first, like Tailwind or Bootstrap or anything. I find a lot of people going for Tailwind because it's easy. It's there is a good documentation. It's easy to find information and copy paste a chunk of code inside your project. I'm not sure it's the right way to do it. It's better to know how a CSS works, what's the possibility of CSS, understand that modern CSS is not always available on these tools yet. So yeah, try to learn CSS first, really learn it, and then if you find that something is missing, your workflow is not great, you need to work with a team on everything. After that, use your tools, Tailwind like this, to improve your flow, your process. But yeah.
I one of my favorite bits I saw lately on social media was that one where somebody realized that they just asked the bot, the LLM, to change the margin top from MT3 to MT12 in dashboard layout line number 45. And he's like, what have I become? Because we're having like we're actually using really, really expensive technology to change things in an abstraction on top of another abstraction on top of another abstraction, rather than like changing the margin to another value in your CSS. And I think it's interesting that we've come into this world where convenience seems to be a thing that people want, but we actually realize like, what are we doing here? We're getting far and far into the world of like dependencies on things that shouldn't be dependent on. And that's why it's great that people like you are around to remind people of how cool the stuff is that we have at the moment.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess we're at the end of the show, like we're an hour in, hour 4 minutes. Thanks so much, Theodore. If you haven't looked at what Theodore does, you will find him everywhere on the internet. Like, what are the last messages that you have for people out there? What would you give people at the end of this show to do right now just to get started?
If you are a seasoned developer that does a lot of JavaScript, try to to step back a bit, try to reflect on what you are doing currently, and see and try to check on the internet, is it possible to do it in HTML? If not, okay, is it possible to do it in CSS? If not, then okay, at this point, you can add JavaScript, but you have to check and think if it's possible to do it without JavaScript first. I think it's the right mindset to have. And yeah, the goal is not to learn CSS by heart. It's impossible. There are too many properties, but it's to know what CSS is capable of. That's the main goal, I think. If you know what CSS is capable of, you can search on Google how to do it. And then if it's not possible, you go reach for JavaScript.
Cool. Dan, what about your last words?
Yeah, just to say, I will say, actually, as somebody who has struggled with trying to kind of fashion these like modals and dialogues, in framework kind of environments, that example you gave, I think, is one of the best examples of something that has so much native support, but we kind of do so much really for the purposes of styling. But then, as your example showed, you don't actually lose anything with styling, with the background property, and it's all very easy to control. So yeah, just to say, it's really good for myself actually to be reminded of those things. And I did think actually that if there's potential, we've got our WeAreDevelopers magazine, and we obviously have guest writers, and I thought some of your tips and tricks would be great on our magazine, and people would really respond well to them, because they're yeah, I mean, we learned some really nice tips and tricks today, and so I'm sure our audience would too.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. And I guess that was for the show today. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for watching later on. And yeah, see what Theodore has to say, see what Dan has to say, see if there's a magazine article coming out on that one. And yeah, see you at our Congress, at our other events. And I'm off for some cheese and quiet now. See ya.
Thank you. See ya.